Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody, to another edition here of Cream of the Crop, a fantasy hockey podcast presented by Apples and Ginos. Thank you, Apples and Ginos, for the presentation. We're going to get to biz here. I am your host, Blake Creamer. Please follow me over on Twitter/X at Blake Creamer AG. And joining me today is a returning guest, a friend of the show, Corey Sznajder from all3zones.com. Buddy, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
All right. You know what? I'd have you on every day if you weren't so busy. So there you go. This is an open invitation, Corey. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. Just dad life is a little all encompassing,
Yeah, absolutely, man. So yeah, on that note, how's it been? Because you got a 9-month-old daughter there running around getting crazy. How has this year been for you? Just trying to do all three zones and manage dad life.
I mean, it's been an adjustment every month. It's been something different because, I mean, she was born right before hockey season started, and you know how the first 2 months are. You're kind of just you're just doing what you can to keep her alive at that point. And it's a lot of couch time, a lot of sitting with her, a lot of figuring out, a lot of just getting to know her, just a lot of just getting to know your child really.
Yep.
And then once 4 or 5 months started around, that's when it became a lot more interactive. She's starting to crawl, starting to get on the floor more, starting to grab things a lot more. I used to be able to work with her. Now it's a little different. The first through December or so, it was actually I got into a pretty good setup to where I would just kind of do my thing and she would just be asleep for most of the time, and I would take care of her and I would just be taking care of her when I needed to. And then I would say around February or March or so, it became a lot more difficult to do that because she's standing a lot more. She wants your attention a lot more. She's a lot more attached to you now, or to me too.
Yeah.
So it's it's a lot more. You got to pay a lot more attention to them. So I've had to kind of figure out ways to balance, work and personal life.
Yeah, it's they're so bobbly, aren't they? Just bobbleheads, like actual real life bobbleheads flopping around all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has been your experience, but when I became a dad, and I've got 2 kids myself. It's it just expanded the spectrum of emotion, doesn't it? It's you can have the high highs, way higher than any high I've ever had in my life, and then the lows are soul crushing, horrible. Oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. So I don't know. Has that been your experience that? When people ask me what it's like to be a parent, I'm like, yeah, it's the best thing and the worst thing. Mostly the best, right? I think we're probably looking at 80-20 maybe. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
that's high.
Yeah. What I always tell people is it's I don't have good days or bad days anymore. I have good hours and bad hours.
Yeah, you're getting granular on that.
Yeah. Well, that, because the first few months, all the days kind of blended into one because my wife and I were sleep shifting.
Yep.
So one of us stays up with the baby, the other one goes to sleep for a little bit, and it was a good system. Then we couldn't do that anymore because she needed to sleep through the nights, and we're on different schedules now too. So that was an adjustment period, and now we got a new adjustment period because she's getting close to walking soon. But she's the best though.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's weird to think that I didn't have a child. This has only been my life for 9 months. It feels a lot longer than that.
It's weird. For me, it kind of shuts. It does it shuts that other part of your life off. It's that seems like a distant memory, and now 100% focuses on this little human. It's a really cool thing. So recommended, people. Having kids is fun, and it's also the worst thing ever. So yeah, but enrich your life. Anyways, buddy, I could talk about that all day, but I'm so glad that I have you on here because the work you do at all3zones.com is some of my favorite, if not my favorite, content, and I use it pretty much every day when I'm trying to value players here for fantasy hockey, and I talk about it quite a bit. So on this pod, so having you here is just, again, really exciting for me. For people that aren't maybe aware of what All 3 Zones is, would you mind giving us a little elevator pitch of All 3 Zones just for the listeners there?
Yeah, so basically what I do is I track a lot of data from NHL games the league doesn't track. So the big one that I do track is shot assists, basically setups, basically looking at how good of a basically looking at how grading playmaking in a way. And from that, you can get a whole new level of detail of stats. Like you can see how good teams are at defending passes, how good they are at creating them, what type of style they play. If they play off the rush, if they play more off the cycle. And you can kind of just get a better view of how teams match up against each other and just how a player might fit into a certain system. So it's a lot of details I track. A lot of it's really granular. Some people only use part of it. Some people use like the whole package. But it's a lot of video work on my end and a lot of number crunching on my end to like make the data presentable. So that's basically like the Clip Notes version. Basically, it's more detailed NHL stats, and from then you can do a lot of fun things like make player cards, make team profiles, just all sorts of things. Like if you're into a lot of people into video games really like this stuff, and a lot of people into fantasy hockey really like this too. Mm-hmm. So a lot of coaches seem to be really into this too, especially ones at like the lower levels. Just like they've told me they use it for their teams to kind of like grade their players. So that's been kind of interesting to hear, like just my little project that is being used like in different levels. But yeah, it's a fun data collection project and a fun like NHL information project, basically.
Yeah, I feel like it's so applicable. And yeah, your name's all over the place. Like, you know, when on Twitter anyway, when people are presenting data, it's like you see that little all three zones on the bottom. This is the guy here, folks. He's doing that. All right, on the regular. It's funny that you mentioned video games as well, because I was such a big fan and am of the NHL games, like EA Sports or whatever. But like player cards and looking at those individual players on NHL, you know, I started at 94, 95, 96. Yeah. I wonder if there's like a weird kind of nostalgic connection that people are like, yeah, I love that. Cause I love these player cards too. Like it's so helpful just to see all that data on one thing. And even you do another thing called the Microstat game score, which is like kind of just a ranking, which I mean, why do we love lists so much? Why is that so helpful?
I mean, like making lists and stuff isn't my favorite thing, but it's also kind of like in the name of creating content and making it somewhat easy, like pretty easy to digest, like on the surface. Like with Microstats game score, basically I took Dom Lucian's game score stats and kind of just applied like what he did there to the stats that I collect, and kind of just assigned a different value for certain things, like zone entries are worth this much, failed entries hurt you this much, zone exits with possessions give you this, failed exits hurt you this way, passes boost your score, high danger passes boost your score even more, scoring chances boost your score a lot. So it's like kind of taking everything a player does and just jamming into one value. And it's like, it's not the most detailed because not everybody can touch the puck. A lot of players like contribute off puck or away from the puck, and kind of they get hurt a little more in this score. But I think like it does a pretty good job of just showing who's doing what and who's contributing like the most as far as like the more impactful ways go.
Yeah, it's like it's a really palatable kind of starting point to some of these stats, isn't it? Like I think people can get overwhelmed, like I was when I first dug in on all three zones. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm not sure how to extrapolate this, right? Like I think I've read your FAQ section like, you know, a dozen times. Still, I'm like, okay, what is this? Like I'm trying to, well, that equals this. Okay, so I like that micro game stat score. I think that's, or Microstat game score. I think that's really helpful just for starting out. But anyways, okay, so that's all three zones. Like again, very valuable stuff. I'm going to throw the link in the description here so you can guys all get there. Maybe I'll throw the link to your Patreon as well because you've got that. And I'm a patron, and honestly, it's great. It's money well spent. You know, I maintain that. I've been using it. I use it pretty much every time I'm doing fantasy hockey stuff. So there you go. Anyways, let's talk really quickly about these playoffs here, because I know you put out a couple articles on your Substack there, and I was reading through those. What do you think? What have been your impressions so far of the finals, and what do you think that the Panthers are doing so well, sort of to keep Edmonton's Top Guns at bay? I mean, save for Game 4 where they just went nuclear.
Yeah, it's been a weird series. Like I think the last article I titled Topsy Turvy because the series kind of just got flipped on its head in Game 4. Yeah. But there's been a lot of really just crazy waves of momentum in this series. Because like you look at Game 1, Edmonton controlled that first period, but they were losing 2-0 because Florida scored on 2 of their first 3 chances. and they just could not stop Bobrovsky. And they were getting pretty good looks. They were just shooting low on all of them. They couldn't elevate the puck that much. It's just little tiny details like that ended up hurting them, because in the third period, the Panthers got to their game and dominated. So it was like kind of it's like two good teams battling each other. And like not one team is going to dominate the entire game. So they kind of just have to look for pockets of the game where they can take over. At least that's kind of the vibe I was getting from just the first 3 games of the series. Because in game 2, well, the other thing I was talking about was game 2. If the Oilers played the way they did in game 1, they're probably going to win that game. In game 2, they had 3 total chances the entire game, 3 scoring chances. That's it. And that game was a mess. So nothing from game 1 carried over to game 2, and Florida just kind of just nuked them that entire game. And from then I thought this series is over. And in game 3, I thought Edmonton played an okay game for the most part. The first part of the second period, I thought they were getting decent looks. Problem is Florida is just not letting them get any rush chances at all. They had 3 guys stacked up at the line. They just the Oilers were kind of cheating for offense a little bit, and they still couldn't get by any of Florida's defensemen, even though they were at a standstill. And it was kind of interesting to see, because there was one chance I clipped in the second period where Hyman had Kulikov at the line, and he just could not get away from him. And he had a rush chance that basically got disrupted into just this soft backhander. And that and the Fogle goal was their only rush chances the entire game. So the entire game, they had 16 scoring chances, but only 2 were off the rush. And when you think of the Oilers, like, how are they going to score a lot of goals? It has to be the advantage they had in this series was their speed, because their Florida's blue line is not very fast, or not very fleet of foot. It's Gustav Forsling. Gustav Forsling's their best all-around defender. Yeah. Brandon Montour's a good skater, but not a good defender. And the other 4 are not great skaters as far as keeping up with speed goes. So the Oilers, they got a decent advantage. The Oilers got a decent chance advantage on them, but it's just all their chances were coming in zone. So they don't have a lot of space to work with. They had trouble elevating the puck. They had sticks in there. They were getting stick the entire time. And Florida just dominated. Florida eventually just took over the game for 10 minutes, and that's all they needed.
Yeah.
And they won the game from basically dominating for 10 minutes. So it's been a lot of that, just like a lot of just small details and small granular things are coming back to hurt the Oilers, even though like on the surface, it looks like they're doing all right and they just stick with it. They'll be fine. But they just keep having these like periods where they self-destruct, and Florida's made them pay. And then in game 4, the complete opposite happened. Florida carried the first period and they gave up 3 goals on 4 shots.
Yeah, crazy stuff. And they missed some open nets right before, the floodgates started opening up there. So I've really enjoyed this finals just in terms of the game within the game, you know what I mean? Or who's imposing their style, right? Because like you said, the Oilers are looking to, use their speed. They're looking to get chances off the rush. They do that so well. And Florida, I mean, these guys they're psycho forecheck, right? They're in there, they're getting shots off the rush, but they're getting, they like to do kind of muck it up and cause some chaos right in the offensive zone. And it's funny to me that they're kind of doing that at times in the game, but then it just comes down to efficiency and luck, doesn't it? Like, because like you said, topsy-turvy, like Oilers in game 1, that should be their game. But, Bobrovsky stonewalls them and that's that, right? And so there's just all these little matchups here. Things like McDavid, Barkov, Forsling, and pretty much anyone who's trying to enter the zone against him, it's just been a really neat series that way.
Yeah, and I guess if you're Florida, the only thing you worry about in game 4 is if the Oilers figured something out, because like their blue line looked really like the lack of foot speed on that blue line really, really showed in that game. Ekblad got torched 4 times, and Kulikov that was Mikkola who got burned on the Henrique goal. And there was a few chances that they got against Forsling, and a lot of it is because for some reason Ekblad was pinching all the way up the ice, chasing hits. And Forsling, he's been really good at playing center field and kind of chasing forwards down to either break up the entry or just angle them off. But he just couldn't do it that game. And a lot of it was just execution from the Oilers. Like that Henrique goal was insane. The Holloway one was even more insane. Yeah. Like he just caught that on his backhand and then got it by Bobrovsky somehow. Like that was ridiculous. So it's been a lot of that. Just I like, I know people hate talking about momentum and all that, but I don't know, when something good happens in a series like this, like, I can understand players being like, all right, let's go get another one. Like, all right, let's go do this again. And that seems to be what that was definitely happening with Florida, especially in game 3. And then in game 4, I guess, well, in game 4, the Oilers got that early goal, and it's like, okay, Bobrovsky's beatable. Let's go do it again. So I don't know. Maybe that kind of mental aspect of the game is kind of definitely showing something. I mean, the fact that it ended 8-1 is crazy, but still,
Yeah.
like, I think that was definitely playing a factor because the Oilers just took it to them that game.
Yeah, they were pent up, weren't they? I mean, I do like that conversation as well. Like, something that's not quantifiable is that mental aspect, right? Like, I love the microstats. It's about as detailed as you can get, everything, but the mental aspect, like, that's just something we can't understand or know, like, from game to game, from minute to minute, right? But yeah, like when you're down, 3-1, 4-1 in quick succession, 6-1, I think it was in the second period. It's like, that's mentally, you're not gonna be putting your A game out there. Like, it's almost impossible to do that unless you're some, like, sociopath and you don't even give a damn. So
Yeah,
it's just an interesting thing. I wish there was something like microstats for the mental aspect of the game. You know what I mean? I wish we could quantify that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could too, but I feel like that's just something that's something you kind of just have to observe. It's just a talking points, which is fine. Like, not everything has to be quantifiable, but I do kind of like, when I break down the game, what I like doing is looking at the chances, like just how they're happening, what kind of flurries they're happening in. Are they happening in succession? And with the Oilers' chances in game 3, they got a flurry early in the second period, and the score was still 1-1. And Holloway had this chance on his backhand that got stopped. And then right after that was the Tarasenko goal.
Yeah.
And then the Oilers did not get a chance for 10 minutes, and it was 4-1. So to me, that's like, okay, there it is right there. And they got back into that game, granted, still, but it took them a lot. And I don't know. I think I think also, like, maybe that game kind of carried over to the next one because they got 3 by Bobrovsky, and he looked human in that game. Like, even though he still stopped like a decent amount of shots, and he got McLeod late in the game, but still he looked a lot more beatable than he has in about 4 weeks. So,
well,
I think
save at game 3, that was ridiculous. At the end of the game there, like, what was he doing? He saved it with his jock. He's doing the splits. I mean, crazy stuff. He's had an amazing playoffs for sure. I thought he was going to be not a lock for the Conn Smythe if they won, but I really did think it's going to be him or Barkov most likely if Florida wins. But after getting pumped 8-1, maybe that knocks him down a little bit there. I mean, that's just a bizarre score.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of, I was going to say it kind of reminds me of Boston, Vancouver. Just it was close. It was like close game, 7-1, 8-1, then close game again. And it was like, oh, if Luongo wins, I mean, if Vancouver wins this, is Luongo the Conn Smythe winner? Because he might have been.
Yep. I don't know why you had to bring that up, Corey. All right. Damn it. All right. I'm still processing the loss from 2011. Okay. But that's fine. But that's good stuff, man. Really good analysis there. And definitely check out Corey on Substack because all this stuff is there and he's got some nice clips on the article as well. So check that out. I did want to ask you just on the playoffs in general, have there been any players that you've noticed through your tracking and stuff that have had significant changes to their metrics during the playoffs, right? So maybe, have obviously elevated their game or, gone the other way with it.
I would say one is Broberg on Edmonton, but part of that just because he didn't get a chance to really do anything really since like they drafted him. They played him like 10 minutes a game, treated him with kid gloves, and then they finally just got desperate for a puck mover. And he's been excellent since they put him back in the lineup. He's probably been their best. He's been their best defenseman at kind of taking hits to make plays. And one of the things I track is puck retrievals that lead to exits. Like, not exactly exiting the zone, like it's not exiting the zone on your own, but it's starting the exit, which is absorbing pressure, absorbing the forecheck, making the first pass. And that's where he's really excelled. And he's probably proven himself as an NHLer right now, finally. And Dylan Holloway is another guy who's really kind of stepped up these playoffs, especially this series. This is the best I've seen him play ever. But he's another guy where I think like he didn't really get a chance to do much like in the Oilers lineup because I don't know. I feel like a lot of players on the Oilers, like outside of their top line, it's just kind of like they're out there to not screw up instead of
Yep.
contribute, and he definitely showed that. And well, I don't want to say Wyatt Johnson. Like Wyatt Johnson is a good player, but he was playing like at a Conn Smythe level when
Yeah.
with Dallas this year. He was absolutely ridiculous, like at creating chances and just being instant offense for that team. And I'm trying to think like who else is like I'm trying to think who else like elevated their game. Like, because a lot of them are players that like I know that are like that are already know that are good.
Yeah. Wyatt Johnston, though, that's a great one. And I think that came with like, massive deployment increase as well. He's playing over 20 minutes. I mean, Hintz was out, so now he's on the top power play. Like, this is a guy I'm pretty damn excited about going into next season, because of just the chance generation was insane, but also the confidence that this kid has. Like, with the puck carrying it in, I mean, off the wall, he's looking really good. Just confident. And yeah, that's a big one for us here at Apples and Ginos for sure.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where it's like his game kind of developed from the offensive zone outward. Like a lot of these players coming up from junior, they're used to going end to end with the puck, being just machines in transition. And he's someone where like the forechecking game came to him first, and just winning pucks off the wall and getting to the net. Like that part of the game was easy for him, and then the rest of his game started to round out from there, like kind of in like a Brady Tkachuk type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And Austin, like I'm not going to say he's going to be like Austin Matthews, but Austin Matthews is really similar when he first came into the league. Like the offensive zone play came first, and then like the confidence with the puck in the other areas came after that.
Yep. No, that's definitely a player I'm excited about. Yeah. Like, is there anyone who you think, like a guy like Forsling, this has obviously been a coming out party for him. Have his metrics really changed from, the regular season into the playoffs here?
I mean, he's been just a monster these playoffs. In the regular season, he was really good too. Like not this good, but
Yes.
definitely still like really good. He's always been really good at kind of just playing, like I said, playing center field at the line, denying entries, using his skating to break up plays. In his like early years, he was a lot more high risk, high reward. But like since like Florida's kind of changed their game a little bit, like with hiring Paul Maurice, like he's definitely settled down a lot. Like last year, he had a pretty big dip in his offensive play from that, and just his puck play in general. But this year, it's definitely gone back forward. Where it's definitely gone back to where it was like when Andrew Brunette was there. Yep. And this is probably like the best version of him that I've seen in the playoffs. He's definitely elevated his game. Like he's gone from good to elite, which like pretty interesting story. Like I think he was in the league for about 3 years, got sent to the AHL, claimed off waivers, and look at him.
God, Canucks had him. We had him. Oh my!
And so did Carolina. Carolina. Like
yep.
they didn't even give him a look, which I mean, at the time, nobody really thought much of it because like they had Slavin, they had Shea, and Shea turned into just a tremendous player for them.
Yeah.
And they had prospects they wanted to try out. So Forsling was going to be the third pair defenseman there if they kept him. But I don't know, like a lot of teams miss on those.
I know. Well, it's nice to see for sure. And then, while we're talking about Forsling, I should talk about Darnell Nurse, kind of going the other way, and just the heat that he's taking these playoffs. But, in your experience, what have you seen from Darnell Nurse? And is it as bad as everyone's saying? Like, I mean, he's also paired with Cody Ceci, and that's really where the problems lie. Like when those two are together, they're just getting caved in. And where are you at with Darnell Nurse? Is this just the player he is now?
Yeah, in the playoffs, he's gotten really like I don't know if you're familiar with like the big mistake syndrome. Like basically every mistake he makes ends up in the back of the nets.
Yes.
But in these playoffs, especially, he's been just a mess, like with entry defense, zone X's, they've been really bad too. But like normally Nurse is he's a pretty average player that plays monster minutes behind a top line. That's what got him that contract. And like his strength has always been kind of just skating with the puck and being the second guy on the rush. And the Oilers have just kind of been trying to figure out what exactly he is, really, even after giving him the contract, because they had him attached to the hip to Cody Ceci for so long. Cody Ceci is a zero with the puck. So Nurse has to do the puck moving on his own. Yep. And Nurse, when he has time and space, he is very good, but he's got to be the one to go back to get pucks now. And that's where he's really bad. And well, he doesn't like that's where Woodcroft did a good job with Nurse. Like he kept that pairing of Doom together for way too long, but he kept them as a shutdown pair, but it was really a pair where just nothing was going to happen on the ice, which I get, but it also has diminishing returns when you're paired with Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid, because you want those guys on offense all the time, and you want your defensemen to be complementary to them. And Nurse, like in that type of role with Ceci, he's just throwing pucks up the wall and keeping play at a neutral for as long as he can. And like eventually that's just not, eventually that's going to come back to burn you, because like it's not going to, because like you're going to start facing better teams, better competition, and you're going to get exposed eventually. And like CC, he's a guy, he is not good with the puck at all. He's good at getting in the way. He's good at stopping cycles, but like he does a lot of things that you perceive as good defense, but then when like in the micro picture, but in the big picture, it's a negative impact, because you can get basically anybody to do that for league minimum if you want. Whereas like if you're playing somebody that high in the lineup, you want somebody who can kind of push the play a little more, which is why Evan Bouchard has like come a long way, and why they got Matthias Ekholm in the first place.
Yep, absolutely, man. It's tough too. Nurse's contract, like that's really all eyes are on him, right? Like you got to paying a guy over $9 million, and to just put him out there for low event hockey, you know what I mean? It's just like that doesn't feel good, you know. So I definitely get it there. It's not Nurse's fault, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's probably bad. Like obviously we know he's battling an injury, but even before then, I feel like something's off, something's not right here. So I'd be surprised if he, didn't come out and say like, yeah, I was dealing with this, because
they finally broke up the pairing. So
yeah.
He's been playing he hasn't been playing as much. They've been riding Ekholm and Bouchard pretty hard, like as they should. And Broberg started to play more. Brett Kulak has started to play a little more too. And Kulak, I think, has had a really good series. And I don't know, like they're never gonna scratch him. Like they actually scratched CC. So like Knobloch has been pretty aware of like Knobloch isn't blind to like any of these struggles going on. And he's finally he's finally just kind of had like the gumption to play the younger guys instead and just see if they can do better. And well, Broberg has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you said about Broberg there. And that's definitely a player I think it could make a difference here in this series, right? If he can get out there for some minutes and do at minimum what Nurse is doing, right? But also, get the puck to these guys so they can get the business on offense, right? Like,
we've seen it a little bit. He got that goal in game 3, and I thought he played really well in game 4 too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is good stuff, man. I feel like I could talk about this forever. I got to move on. But I love that analysis. So thanks for that, my man. I do want to, this is a question I asked you last year, and I'll ask again. I have a basic idea here, but just for our listeners, what do you think? So what combination of microstats to you are congruent with player performance for certain positions and player types? So basically forwards and D. So what are you looking for with microstats for forwards, for offensive production, and then for defensemen as well?
So with forwards, I always look at controlled entries, whether that's like the percentage of entries with possession or entries per 60, because it means that they have the puck on their stick a lot. They're confident with the puck. They're capable of getting through the neutral zone on their own. It means they can create quick strike offense. Basically, it means they can kind of be like the point guard of the offense, sort of like the play is going to go through them at some point, like in some way, shape, or form. And this is a stat that's pretty consistent year to year. There's been a couple of weird ones. Mitch Marner's a weird one right now. We can get into that later. And but it's a good starting point to kind of see where the offense starts and see like a guy you can build a line around, because sometimes you might want a forechecker on that line, sometimes you might want a guy like this on that line. But like a lot of elite players are in this class, but there's also good complementary guys who fit it too, like Nikolai Ehlers and or Connor Garland, like a little lower in the lineup there.
Right.
But also just shot and chance production's another big one, because I like looking at how much of their offense is good and how much of it is empty calorie, and what can they do. Is there anything you could be doing better? Like, is there anything they could be doing better? Is there anything the team could be doing better? Can they be going to the net more? Can they be doing a better job to create spacing, that kind of thing? And with defensemen, I like looking at exits with possession, particularly by carrying the puck, because like passes are a little more reliant on like the forwards in front of you and kind of the system you play with breakouts. Whereas like if you're consistently good with carrying the puck out of your zone, that means like you definitely have skill set as like far as mobility goes. And retrievals leading to exits is the other big one, because that's been a consistent one that shows through a defenseman over time. And it kind of most of the best defensemen that play big minutes that are good at preventing chances against and controlling play are good in this stat. Like Miro Heiskanen, Charlie McAvoy have been the two best at it, like year to year. Adam Fox is the other one. That's kind of been like the holy trinity: Miro, McAvoy, Fox, and Quinn Hughes.
The holy trinity. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Hughes has been more the last 2 years, because he's had a lot of, like, the first couple of years in Hughes' career, he was very turnover prone. And the last 2 years, he's been in that Heiskanen territory.
Yeah, is he like so that first thing that you mentioned? Is he more of like he carries out of the zone? Is he elite at that? Like, what are examples of that first kind of category that you mentioned?
Just guys who are very good at like turning a retrieval into an exit on their own and evading forecheck pressure. So like, it goes both ways, because like it's good at, because you're not defending that way. Like, one, you're not defending. Two, you're creating offense the other way. It could be off the rush. It could be just alleviating pressure. It's just a good way to kind of, gauge of like where a defenseman is as far as mobility goes.
Yep. No, I love this stuff, man. Last time you were on, we talked about your microstat compass that I still reference like quite a bit. And I love that. It just kind of works the way my brain works, like kind of separating people. I mean, obviously there's so much nuance to that, but like separating into those quadrants and sort of thinking about how they work with their teammates. And unfortunately, after we talked, I wasn't able to ask you about the defenseman compass, because you created that as well. And this is last year. This is in August, or right before I think your daughter was born.
Yeah,
you put that out. So, can you talk to me a little bit about the defenseman compass, if you don't mind, and just kind of how I know there's a lot more variables involved, like like you mentioned. I mean, a lot depends on the team systems and where the forwards are even to get passes. So, like a lot of those microstats aren't exactly consistent, but can you talk a little bit about the defenseman compass?
Yeah, basically my hope was kind of to split defensemen into like 4 different archetypes. So I was looking at puck movers. So I'm looking at puck movers, stoppers, like guys who are good at entry defense, retrievers, guys who can kind of absorb the damage and allow like the puck movers to do their thing. And I think I had another one called rushers. I have to look at this again.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Oh yeah,
stoppers, clearers, retrievers, and rushers.
Yeah, movers and rushers I put in the same category because that's redundant. Clearers is the other one, like guys who just get the puck out of the zone, kind of like Cody Ceci, basically.
Yeah.
And stoppers, guys who are good at entry defense, and retrievers are guys who absorb the damage from the forecheck to start exits. And it was kind of tough because a lot of these elite defensemen are good at all of these things. Like a guy who's a good puck mover is going to be a good retriever too, usually. And guys who are good at clearing the puck are usually good at entry defense too. Same with like rushers being good at entry defense. So it was a little tough to do, but like my hope was to like break defensemen down into these different categories. And I kind of saw something with it. Like that's kind of where I saw like that. That's kind of where I started to notice that defensemen who carry the puck out of the zone or lead the most exits with possession. Like those stats are really consistent over time, especially when they change teams, because a big red flag with defensemen is like how he plays in one team doesn't always carry over to the next, especially with like some microstats like entry defense. That's pretty variable by team. But a good puck mover, a guy who's a good puck mover and is good at getting the puck out on his own, is going to stay good on like his next team. It might not show in the overall results, but this tool that's part of his skill set is always going to be there. So that was kind of my goal with this and kind of what I found with it. But basically, like I looked at 6 years of my data using all these stats and found like 4 or 5 stats that were the most consistent year to year and kind of broke them into archetypes that way. And like I said, it wasn't cut and dry because like I said, a guy who's a good puck mover is going to be good at can be good at denying entries too, and good at retrieving the puck too. Like a Cale Makar is good at everything. Adam Fox is good at everything. So, but with like with like your second and third pair defensemen, though, this is kind of where you can start to break them down into different archetypes. And also, like if you don't have like a Cale Makar or an Adam Fox on your team, and you have just a group of really good guys like Vegas did last year, you can kind of pair them with different complementary playing styles. Like Pietrangelo is their puck retriever and their puck mover, and he was paired with Martinez, who's a shot blocker. And they also had Shea Theodore, who is a puck mover, but not good at retrieving the puck. So I'm trying to remember who he played. Oh yeah, Brady McNabb, who is he's a safer player. Yeah. And they had and they also had Zach Whitecloud and Nick Hague on the third pair. Whitecloud is more of a puck stopper, but he's good. He's not like an elite puck mover, but he's good enough at it that you can kind of trust him in that role and pair him with more of like a safer player like Nick Hague, who's not the greatest skater or offensive player. So like when you have, it's kind of interesting to look at it that way, like these complementary skill sets to play, how players play with each other.
Yeah, that right there, that's one of the biggest things I took from these compasses that you created. And that kind of leads me into my next question here, which is like, what makes a good line in the NHL? Like, and you just talked a little bit about defensive pairs and kind of how they match up and why they match up that way. They sort of, complement each other's, weaknesses or whatever. But can you talk to me a little bit about what makes a good forward line in the NHL in your experience? Like, is there a formula, right? And what kind of, even further to this, I've got a few of the lines here, like some of the top lines in the league. And I just wanted to get your take on some of those, like, and even before you answer, like a line like Lafreniere, Panarin, and Trocheck, for instance, like on the Rangers, which is predominantly like a rushing team, right? And then, going to Nashville, you got Forsberg, Nyquist, and Ryan O'Reilly, again, scored a ton of goals. They're better off the forecheck and cycle, right? So is there similarities between things like that? Like, are the best lines always kind of 3 style of players?
Yeah, but I think one guy on that line has to be kind of a do-it-all type of player. Like in Nashville, that's Forsberg. He's a good passer, incredible shooter, good off the rush. He'll work hard on the forecheck. And O'Reilly's like the forechecking defensive presence on that line.
Yeah.
And Nyquist is also a very good kind of do-it-all type of player.
Facilitator as well.
Yeah, he's also like, a guy like Nyquist is really important too, just because he doesn't always need the puck to be effective. He's good at getting open, screening, all that kind of stuff. And like with how much Yossi's involved too on that team and creating offense, you kind of need, you really need like the defensive presence or somebody to kind of like screen the goalie or just cause some kind of disruption in front of the net. So that's why that line works so well together. Just kind of seeing the players you have, how they mesh with each other and how they can kind of like work together in the offensive zone. But I think it all needs to come back to one guy who's like the driving force. And like, to me, that's Forsberg in Nashville, because he does it all and he does it all at an elite rate. And like with the Rangers, like it goes through Panarin.
Yeah. And
Panarin's the do-it-all guy, and he's been shooting the puck a lot more this year too. So it just add a new kind of tool to his arsenal. And like Trocheck is also a really good Swiss Army knife do-it-all guy. Like in Carolina, he was one of their best players, like controlled entries. And like they were a team that dumped the puck in all the time, and Trocheck was one of the guys who had the freedom to kind of carry the puck in, and he wasn't always looking to create off the rush too. Like if it wasn't open, he would just go to the corner and play the possession game. And Panarin can do that too. Lafreniere can do that too. Getting to the net's been his big thing. It's been his thing like in his first few years in the NHL, and then this year, like the puck skill finally kind of came along with it. And I think that just came with practice, more repetitions with the puck, more opportunities to create offense instead of being buried on a checking line.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love kind of trying to see the similarities because I put some examples here with different style of offenses for these teams, but I like what you said about how you need that one player who's really kind of a game breaker. And you've got Forsberg, you got Panarin. I also threw like Boldy, Kaprizov, and Eriksson Ek in there. I mean, obviously Kaprizov's the guy there, and then Palat, Hischier, and Bratt. I mean, I would guess that that's probably Bratt who's leading the charge there, right? But it's just interesting. I like you've got a rusher, you've got a facilitator, and you've got kind of a defensive presence, right, on all of these lines. And that's just the way my brain works. I'm like, okay, what's similar? And because I'm trying to predict, right? And obviously that's a fool's errand. I don't think I can actually do that, but I like putting things on my side. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I'm glad to hear your thoughts there. Do you think that a line needs like those three elements really to succeed?
I mean, it depends on how your team plays and how you want to play. Because if you have a line that you just want to kind of kill the clock and just be a checking line, it's obviously built a little differently than one that's out there to kind of create like rush offense or be secondary scoring. It also just depends on, I mean, some teams have like their top line as their checking line too. Like Nashville kind of operates that way because O'Reilly's there, and then their second line is a little more free to do whatever because they got like because that's where the rookies are, like your Tommy Novaks and your Luke Evangelistas, those guys. So just how you build your team, like how you structure it, it kind of goes back to just how you build your team and how you structure it.
Right.
Because like not every line is the same. Not every line's got the same role. Like the Oilers, like sometimes they want a checker with McDavid. Sometimes they want to do it all guy with him. Sometimes they want more of a shooter with him. So they kind of alternate who plays with him a lot.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting. I look at the Canucks too. Like I look at Elias Pettersson and sort of how he fell off, especially in the playoffs. And there's all this talk out here in Vancouver about getting him a winger. And it's like, what type of winger would be good? I mean, I know that the Canucks are now kind of going to make a run at Jake Gensel here. Like that would be pretty damn sweet. Oh man, I'd be pretty happy about that. But I mean, what kind of player is Jake Gensel? Like, because I think Pettersson, he's almost like, he seems to me to be that Swiss Army knife kind of guy, like the Vincent Trocheck kind of guy. He's not a rusher. He's not exactly dynamic. Like what type of player is Jake Gensel?
Yeah, Gensel, he's a lot more of a do-it-all type of guy than you'd think, because I think he has the reputation of kind of just being the guy who'll go to the nets and like be the finisher or the shooter. But like in Carolina, he was a hell of a passer, a great playmaker. He made Jarvis have a 30-goal season basically in 1 month, from how good of a playmaker he was and just how much of a distraction he was out there, because Jarvis got wide open, like in front of the net, in the slot, everywhere, because teams were so focused on Gensel and Aho. And he's a really good utility guy for any top line. I don't know like the exact comparison. Like I always hate doing that because like I always hate doing that, but he can kind of do it all and just contribute in any way he can. And like, I mean, obviously, when you play with Sidney Crosby that long, you must be pretty good at hockey.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the story with Gensel for a long time is just, he's good because of Crosby, but going to Carolina and doing what he was able to do there and change the style of his game. Like, I think he was, like you said, more of a shooter with Pittsburgh there, but then to come over to Carolina and start facilitating a bit and making his teammates better as well. It was really nice to see. So anyways, maybe we'll get Gensel, and then we'll miss the playoffs next year in true Canucks fashion. Let's move on. Thank you so much for your time, man. I've got a couple more questions for you, then I'll let you go here. One, I did want to circle back to defensemen really quick and just get your take on, are there any young defensemen maybe lurking around that could have bigger roles this upcoming season? And then further to that, just kind of a second question. Do you think zone entries or zone denials correlate to increased ice time?
As far as like defensemen, as far as like under the radar defensemen go, I'll have to look at my data really quick, just because I kind of have some brain fog right now with
oh, no worries, buddy.
Yeah. But a few guys had some coming out parties this year, like Thomas Harley did. Jake Sanderson had a really good season in Ottawa.
What about Luke Hughes?
Yeah, he's right now he's really turnover prone. Both him and Nemec kind of have issues like with their play in the like defensive zone, the smaller detail parts of the game. Neither of them have been very good puck retrievers or very good at starting exits just yet. At least like in comparison to like how much they turn the puck over. Hughes especially. Hughes I thought was going to be a lot better because he started the year so well, but as time went on, he struggled. But where they really shined is kind of being the complementary guys in the offensive zone. Nemec especially, he was like dynamite as kind of that extra forward and just kind of creeping down from the points and just creating offense from there. So I think that's going to be his calling card, and the rest of his game will round out. But yeah, I think he's going to be the star there. Hughes, I think, will be good. I just think he might be more like the high-end offensive guy who you kind of have to shelter out there, like a Shea Theodore or something like that.
What about a player like Brandt Clark in LA? Like, obviously Doughty's still good to go there, and but I feel like Clark could maybe get a little bit of opportunity power play 2, and then obviously if Doughty's injured, maybe he rips up to power play 1. I don't know. Like, is that a player that interests you at all?
He interests me. The Kings just refuse to play him is the thing.
Yep.
So I've liked what I've seen from him, but I don't know. They played Andreas Englund in his spot all season long, and they got a really good season out of Jordan Spence, though. It's just Spence has been paired with kind of just the doldrums of that lineup, and his skills kind of go to waste there. That's a player that I really liked like 2 years ago, Jordan Spence. And I mean, he's broken now as far as becoming an NHLer, but I think he could become like a really high end like second power play quarterback, third pair type of defenseman. I don't know what he has outside of that, but I do like him a lot. But like the Kings, that's been a frustrating team for me. It just seems like I thought they were going to be a lot better, and they just kind of hit a ceiling from just kind of their own like short-term roster construction there.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, yeah, all this 1-3-1 talk, Kevin Fiala talking in the media there about, I feel like they're a bit stifled offensively, right? And I think there needs to be a bit more of a balance. And I'm hoping with the new coach there, like maybe he'll make some of those changes, but I'm a bit skeptical when it's, the assistant moving up to the coach now. Like same with the Winnipeg. It's like, is Ehlers really going to get more minutes like under Scott O'Neill? Probably not, like it just stinks, so I'm hoping that there's a bit of a change there, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I don't know. They had all these defensemen, and they spent a first round pick to get Vladislav Gavrikov, which I did not understand. But like that, they're a frustrating team because like I said, they were a team I was high on like 2 years ago, and they just kind of hit a wall as far as how good they're going to be. And I don't know if it's going to change because you got to get out of that division, and they can't get out. They cannot get past Edmonton.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's rough. I mean, they've won their cups though. Who cares? All right,
yeah,
LA, take a break. All right, you don't need any more cups. All right, let's get the Canucks on board. Corey, you with me on this?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I like new blood.
Oh, thank you. That's nice, Corey.
I like seeing new teams in the playoffs. Like,
yes. Well, I am really happy to see Edmonton in there. Honestly, I know that's not a new team in the playoffs, but Connor McDavid needs to be in the final. Like, and this is it, right? It's like, I mean, this is what he's doing. Like I think in one of your articles I was reading, like at 5-on-5, he's kind of underachieving a little bit, isn't he, in terms of his scoring chances and generation there?
Yeah, and that's just been the series. Like he's been good, but not like Connor McDavid good, if that makes any sense. He's creating a lot of offense. He's been really good on the power play,
Yeah.
but I think he's tied with Dylan Holloway in scoring chances, and he's tied with Evan Bouchard in shot contributions. Like there's a lot more to give there.
Yeah.
Like that was the other thing going back, like looking at the Oilers' chances, like they're out chancing Edmonton, but like not enough of them are from the guys who you want to get scoring chances.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
nice that
Matthias Janmark, what are we doing?
yeah, like it's nice that Dylan Holloway's getting all these chances. It's nice that their defensemen are pitching in, but like they definitely need McDavid to kind of have that like that explosion type of game. And I mean, he just had 4 points, so maybe that's it. Maybe, like I said, maybe that's it.
Yeah, and we got to give Florida their flowers too. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, they obviously game plan for these two guys. Draisaitl's done nothing really. Like, you know, he's due a little bit to break out. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to watch the game tonight. But before I let you go, Corey, again, in good conscience, I cannot let you leave without maybe identifying a few fantasy sleepers for us, guys that, you know, maybe you're higher on based on the microstats than, you know, the consensus. And yeah, again, going back to your compass, like some of the microstat all-stars, maybe some new additions into the microstat all-stars, or, you know, the half-ranked heroes, or whatever that other section was, like just guys that are maybe under the radar that are ready to pop.
Let's see. Like usually I do kind of a review of this in the off season. Well, Tommy Novak had like the breakout season I was hoping for, but
Nice.
then he sucked in the playoffs, so I don't know where he is there. Let's see. Leo Carlson in Anaheim. I think he's going to be a really, really good player. So he's going to be their best player next year. Like,
awesome.
Not even close. Which, like, yeah, of course, he's a top 2 pick. He should be their best player.
Yeah, you're hoping.
Like Kent Johnson pick, that bombed in the worst way. I want to see what Casey Middlestat does in the full season in Colorado, because I think that's a really good setup for him. Let's see. Nobody really on. Well, Fantilli, I'll see how he does in year 2 because he got injured this year. Let's see. Going down the list here, Lucas Raymond. He's a guy that broke out last year. He was somebody that he wasn't really a play driver the first 2 years. He just kind of capitalized on other guys setting up chances for him. And then this year, boom, he's become more of like the 2-way type of player, or more of the play driver.
It was certainly nice to see that he was contributing at the best possible time. Like this guy was scoring big goals to tie, big goals to win, you know, while they're fighting for their playoff lives. So I think that bodes really well for Lucas Raymond. And yeah, that's a player I'm low-key interested in. I mean, he doesn't really show out in the metrics that I like, but that's why I use these microstats. I use all 3 zones as kind of a barometer. Like I make my sort of valuation, and then I go over to all 3 zones and I kind of go through and look, and it's just a little deeper. Like, what does this mean? Yeah, maybe he's not getting chances or shots to the level that I think they should be, but he's doing other things that are really important that can lead to scoring. So yeah, that's a player I'll definitely be looking at. And now based on your recommendo.
Yeah. And a couple other guys that I have my eyes on is kind of the young core in Washington. Connor McMichael's been really good at creating rush offense, like in his brief stint in the NHL. And they have another guy that's kind of the opposite, Alexei Protas, not involved in the neutral zone, like any way whatsoever. But he's like a sneaky good playmaker, one of the best on the team, and pretty high in the league too, just creating scoring chances and high danger passes. And like you wouldn't expect it because like he's really awkward looking. He's a big dude, not a great skater, but he's got just incredible hands, great vision, and really good at making like blind passes too to just somebody that's open in front of the net. And I'm pretty interested to see like where Washington is next year, like as far as this next step goes, because that old core has fallen off badly, but they have a sneaky good wave of players coming to replace them. Like they're not all going to hit, but like last year I thought Nashville was going to be better because they had kind of this wave of players coming and they're all pretty good. but Nashville also has Forsberg. They also have Yossi.
Yeah, healthy Forsberg, healthy Yossi, kind of,
And
squash that.
Washington, I don't know who's their best player is now. That Ovi's just a shell of himself. But
Yeah.
I think, like, is it Dylan Strome? Is that enough? But I think Connor McMichael's the guy who's going to really pop off there.
Yeah, I'd love to see Washington pick up a guy like Ehlers or something, like one of these play drivers, one of these. I mean, Ehlers anywhere, please. Like, get him out of Winnipeg so we can see what the hell's going on. But yeah, like Ovi is just lumbering over into the, by the face-off, and he's just slapping shots like that. That's pretty much what he's good for right now. And it's weird in Washington. Like, I feel like they're leaning into this goal scoring thing quite a bit. Like, that's what they're playing for. And it's so predictable, isn't it? Like, there has to be another element to that offense. And I feel like the head coach there, I was surprised that their offense was so terrible because he was so good with the Toronto Maple Leafs power play. Carberry, like it's just so stagnant over there.
Yeah. Like that's why I'm interested to see like how they do next year. Cause I mean, he got surprised. I mean, he got them into the playoffs somehow.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of players coming up like through Hershey next year. And like, I know this is kind of like, I mean, a lot of it's just kind of like fan optimism too. It's like, if all of our young players are good, like, yeah, if every team's young players are good, there'd be like 32 good teams in the league.
Happens all the time.
It doesn't always work like that, but they had at least 2 or 3 that showed something. Like, they showed enough to me that they might be okay next year. Now, with that division is going to be a mess next year too. So I think they're going to be in an okay spot. Like, that's kind of my, like, not really a hot take, but like, that's like my Nashville's going to be good pick for next year.
Yeah. And they were, I like that Nashville. I remember you talking about those guys. I mean, even Evangelista at the end of the year, he's getting on power play 1. He was getting power play 1 in the playoffs. Like, that's a great place to be. You know what I mean? Sometimes I've noticed just with myself, and I'm not getting into the weeds like you are, like sometimes I'm off by a year. Like, oh, this guy's going to be awesome. Like Seth Jarvis, 2 years ago, I was like, oh, this guy's going to pop off 65, 70 points. And then no, but yeah, of course he does it, the very next year. Right. So maybe we could just be a year off on that.
I do have a pick for that. Like Matty Beniers, I think is going to I think he's going to have a great rebound season next year. Like great rookie season, not a good sophomore season. But he's still kind of like the guy on that team. He's what drives them. And I think he's still going to, like, just with the stats that I track, he's still creating a ton of offense, a ton of chances, just no finish from that team. And I think it's going to come around next year. Then, like, there's a new coach. I mean, it's Dan Bilesma, but still, like, Dan
Bilesma catching strays here on the
every team. I mean, I was gonna say it's a new coach, but I'm like, it's Dan Bilesma. He's been a coach before, but I don't know. He was the coach of their AHL team, and they've had a good season. Shane Wright's going to be on the team next year. I think a few other guys are going to be on the team next year too, because they auditioned like 5 or 6 of them toward the end, and a lot of them did really well. I thought, like, I think Logan Morrison might be a really good player too, kind of off the radar, and. I think, I think Seattle's going to have a much better season, and I think Matty Beniers is going to have a better season in general too.
I love it, Matty Beniers. Yeah, this is the forgotten one. Basically, everyone on Seattle. I call them the stream team.
Yeah,
because you don't really want to roster anybody. Oh God, we still have a couple minutes here. Andre Burakovsky. What do you expect from him? Because I did notice on all 3 zones, he's a player that shows out. Like I think he was number 1 in the league in rush offense or rush. Shots off the rush, maybe. I don't know. I was surprised, but like, is that someone that we can maybe look at as a player that can take the next step next season under this new coach here in Seattle? He's fully healthy. What do you where are you at with Andre Burakovsky?
Yeah, he's a conundrum. He's always been he's always been just very frustrating. I think, like, at this point, I think he kind of is what he is. Like, just a really good second or third line player on a good team. I don't know if he's ever going to be the guy. Like, some guys make the jump to the next level and others don't. And Burakovsky, I guess going back to it, the only real problem with him last year is that he couldn't score. But still, I'm like, I've been vexed by him forever, because he did this exact same thing in Washington, and then well, like he did this exact same thing in Washington. He always was kind of stuck in that third line role, second power play time. And I think I'm at the point where like maybe this is what he is, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It's just, can Seattle have a guy to play in front of him? Which they might. They have Bjorkstrand, who had a great season, but we'll see. I think but like I said, like second or third line role, dynamite. First line role, nah, I don't know.
Okay. All right. We'll see. That was a guy I called a sleeper last season, and then he literally just went to sleep. I don't know what happened there, but and he was obviously injured as well. Plus, he's on Seattle. So Seattle's a team I'm keeping my eye on this year. There's lots of fun teams this year. Again, New Jersey, Buffalo. Those are teams that I know you were like looking forward to. I was, and they kind of just they took a step back, didn't they?
Yeah. Buffalo, especially. That was a rough one. I thought they were going to be like the team to watch every night, and they just fell back into being the Sabres.
It was coaching. There were some very odd coaching decisions there by Don Granato. And Tage, to me, when you got a franchise player like Tage Thompson, get him on the ice. You know, like they were giving him at times, he was getting 16 minutes, the 16-minute treatment. Like it just makes no sense. And I didn't see enough negative defensive play, even in Tage Thompson, or effort level. I didn't see anything that was really negative there. So I'm wondering if there was maybe an injury with Tage. I don't know, but they caught lightning in a bottle, obviously, the year previous. And then guys like Jeff Skinner sort of fell off, and his deployment got trashed. He was playing like 11 minutes a night at the end of the season there.
Yeah. And Dylan Cousins, I thought he was going to have a much better season too, because he popped off the year before. And he showed well in a lot of the stats that I track. And I thought that was going to stay consistent. It did not, which it happens. Like not everybody bats 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fast game. We talked about this last time. It's like, we're just putting things on our side. You're looking at the data, but there's things that we can't quantify, and luck as well that happens, and injuries and whatever else. So we're doing our best, but you're fighting the good fight here, my man. You're helping us out. I really appreciate you spending your time here with me today. I think this is really valuable stuff for anyone who's interested in fantasy or just hockey in general, and you want to understand why things are happening, right? And that's really the biggest value that you provide, at least me personally, with the All Three Zones project. So thank you so much for doing that.
I appreciate it. Thanks for subscribing too.
You bet, buddy. I'm going to sing your praises. All right. I mention you pretty much every podcast. So there you go. I'm doing my part here for All Three Zones. But before I let you go, I want to just give you the floor. Let our listeners know what you're going to be up to this summer. Hopefully it's taking a nice vacation with your beautiful family and not thinking about any of this stuff at all until next season. But also let us know where we can find you on socials.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do this summer just yet. Like I do have like McKean's player profiles to write, but that's the only thing I have really planned aside from some back-end site data or back-end site stuff. But if you want to subscribe to my Patreon or subscribe to All Three Zones, just go to all3zones.com. That's kind of the hub for everything. There's a link to everything right there. If you want to read some of my work, go to all3zones.substack.com. And I haven't been great about updating the blog this year, but I've been trying to stay consistent throughout the final and maybe have a post every week there or something throughout the summer, just to kind of get a few things off my mind, or just as an outlet. And you can also go to patreon.com, or you can also find my work on Patreon too. And there's a link to that on my Twitter at ShutdownLine. So that's also like one of my hubs. Like everything you need to know as much as you want about me and my project is there. So yep, I think that covers everything.
There you go, man. This man is an absolute unit. You need some Corey Sznajder in your life. Do it now. All right. How's your music going on there? Like what kind of music? We talked about that last time. Now that you've got baby there, has that changed at all? Or are you just rocking out to some crazy Swedish black metal?
I mean, I still listen to my usual stuff when I go on walks. Like when I walk her, I have my headphones in. Usually if I get any time at the gym, it's my usual stuff. I mean, with the baby, it's kind of been fun to see what she likes listening to. Like a REM song came on the TV and she started dancing to it. That was really fun.
Yeah, it opens up your musical taste in a weird way. Like, and I mentioned this last time we talked, but yeah, my son just loved the music from Frozen, and I'm like, okay, and we listened to it. I'm like, this is really good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something I would ever listen to. Why would I listen to that? But I'm like, this packs a punch. You know what I mean? I'm getting misty over here. So, but again, that's just what happens.
Yeah, we're not quite at that age just yet. She hasn't really been watching a lot of movies and such, but I know that's coming
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, well, enjoy it, man. Definitely hit me up. I'll give you some good suggestions just to keep the kids calm. All right, that's what I try and do. All right, nothing silly, just calm shows and music. I think that's best for everybody.
Yeah, will do. I'll definitely need that soon because like the TV
Yeah.
watching age is gonna hit me before I know it.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, cool. Thank you so much, Corey. Congrats on the family and your successes, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yep.
All right, my man. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Really appreciate that. We got some more episodes locked and loaded coming up this week. But until then, celebrate your day. Bye for now.